Hello everyone, this is Insta here. Welcome back to my Game of Thrones Season 9 fan fiction. We are on episode 5, we're almost halfway there, which I have called A Storm of Swords. It's our longest episode up until now. It's actually 68 minutes long, which for a normal episode is pretty long. Last episode I think was our most fast-paced one. Measurements. Actions are being made to secure King's Landing. The discovery was made that the rebels, that all the resistance fighters, the rebels, the spies, the assassins, they were all in. They were all part of the same group, and it actually also appeared that most of them all were from Associ descent. Even the leader of the rebels. It was mentioned to be come from Essos originally himself, so that was a big reveal. So now Jaime, of course, also Bronn arrived at the military camp of Jaime. Now Jaime, Bronn, Podrick, and all their men will go to the rebel camp alongside with the prisoners they've taken to try and make amends, to try and sign a peace treaty so that these things can't stop. Because not only King's Landing was infiltrated, but also House Greyjoy was infiltrated. There was a tragic scene where Theon's wife, alongside with many other men, got killed during an assassination attempt on Theon. So of course this also led to Daenerys becoming slightly more paranoid, having more trust issues because now she has this feeling that she can't trust anyone. The episode ended during an intense fight scene in the streets of King's Landing with Brienne and the City Watch versus several resistance fighters. It ended where Daenerys, Drogon, Jon, and some other men came to the rescue, but Drogon, accidentally or purposefully, that's quite unsure now, he burned down several buildings and also injured some civilians, which of course was just not the plan at all. So now that was pretty much where we left off. Brienne also got injured slightly in her thigh. So that's where episode 4 ends. So I guess we just jump straight into it. Episode 5, A Storm of Swords. Not so far from King's Landing, Gendry rides with its soldiers and wagons to King's Landing. He has a conversation with Edric, who claims he has never seen the capital. They talk a bit more about Robert and Edric's past. When they arrive at King's Landing, they see several people running around and crying. From a distance, they notice a large cloud of smoke coming from a street. They hurry to the Red Keep. As Edric and the rest of the people of Gendry unload the wagons and everything, Gendry hurries to the throne room where he meets Tyrion, who tells him what happened. Brienne is being taken care of in one of the chambers. The Maester informs her that she will be fine over time. Jon is still slightly in shock of what Daenerys did and decides to visit her in her chambers. An argument starts between the two when Jon demands to know if it was Drogon who did it by himself or if it was Daenerys who ordered Drogon to burn down the people in the streets, thus destroying several buildings and injuring numerous civilians. Daenerys won't give an answer and responds by saying that at least now the resistance knows not to threaten their queen. Jon reminds her that although she is the queen, he is also still a leader of their house as much as Daenerys is, and that he won't stand for a regime that tolerates collateral damage. Jon tries to make her come to her senses, saying that this isn't who she is. He reminds her of their time together in the north, when they visited the cave and such. This does help Daenerys to calm down, and the two hug. In another chamber, Theon grieves over the loss of Andrea. In the Reach, Jaime, Bronn, Podrick, and many soldiers are preparing to leave the camp and head for the rebel base. They load the prisoners into a wagon. Jaime leaves the military camp in charge of one of the commanders before they all leave. In King's Landing, we see several people talking about the incident, and some also having second thoughts about the Queen, and think that Jon would have been better as a king. Varys walks around in the streets in disguise, listening to these conversations, and is obviously worried. He returns to the Red Keep and informs Tyrion. Tyrion acknowledges that their fears have been confirmed. They have a conversation in which Tyrion still expresses his hope and faith in Daenerys, and that she will recover. but Varys starts to have his doubts and hopes Tyrion is right. Later, a raven is received in which is said that Jon should return to Winterfell due to some complications and that his son has become very ill. After reading the letter, Jon acknowledges that he must leave for Winterfell for a while. Daenerys isn't too happy, however, with this, and yet another argument starts between the two. Not so long after, Jon trusts Tyrion and Varys to look after her right before he and his men leave for Winterfell. As she sees Jon leaving, Daenerys feels abandoned and alone. She jumps on Drogon and decides to go on a flight with him. She flies over to Dragonstone, where she suddenly sees several ships docked on the side with a lot of people on the beach. She lands with Drogon on the beach, scaring all of the people. She demands to know who they are and what they are doing in her lands. Then, a familiar voice answers her. It's Daario Naharis. She immediately steps off Drogon and they both hug. Daario notices Daenerys' clothing and attitude and takes it that she has made it to become queen. Daenerys, however, wants to know what he's doing here since she had given him the task of ruling Meereen in her name. They have a conversation in which Daario tells her that Meereen has been retaken by the Masters. Apparently they came in the night and surrounded the entire pyramid with a huge rebel army. Daenerys immediately takes it that they were part of the same rebel group that is challenging her in Westeros. She is lost for words and eventually also tells him what is happening here and the struggles that she is facing. She decides to take them to King's Landing with her. In the Reach, Jaime and his troops are still riding towards the rebel camp, following the route told by the prisoners. Jaime and Bronn have a fun chat about the fact that Bronn left his castle behind to help him out. Podrick sends a small scouting party up ahead. Suddenly, everyone hears the scouts screaming and yelling from a distance, but they can't see what's happening because of a thick fog hanging. Jaime orders all of his men to take on defensive positions. Only one horse suddenly returns, indicating that the scouts have been killed. They hear men shouting in the distance when the ground starts to rumble. Jaime orders his men to focus attention to the front, since that's where the noise is coming from. Suddenly, hundreds of men come charging from the sides out of the woods. Jaime looks at the prisoners and sees that they have lured them into a trap. Jaime commands everyone to defend themselves. A very intense fight breaks out as the entire squadron of Jaime is being surrounded and attacked. Bronn jumps off his horse and engages in sword fights as Jaime and Podrick stay on their horse and try to run the rebels over. After a while, Jaime sees that they are lost and orders one of the soldiers to ride off to the military camp. He refuses to leave them there, but Jaime orders him to go. As a soldier tries to escape, Jaime and some others try to fend off several rebels who try to attack the soldier during his escape. Eventually, Jaime, Bronn, Podrick, and dozens of other soldiers are captured by the rebels, and the prisoners are freed. In King's Landing, Daenerys arrives with the ships of Daario Naharis and the other people. She introduces them to Tyrion and Varys. After Daario leaves, the conversation quickly escalates, however, when Daenerys confronts Varys with the news of Meereen and asks him if he knew anything about that thanks to his little birds. Varys confesses that he indeed knew. Before he can say anything else, Daenerys enrages and orders him to deliver his Hand of the Queen badge to her. Varys gives her his badge before he is ordered out of the room. Tyrion tries to calm down Daenerys, but she claims that if she can't even trust her own hand, that she can't trust anyone anymore. Tyrion tries to let her come to her senses by saying that she still has the largest army, the largest fleet, many houses who support her claim, and Jon, with whom she shares the leadership of her house. Daenerys counters this by saying that her armies and supporting houses are infiltrated by spies and assassins, and that Jon has abandoned her in her hour of greatest need. She goes to her chambers while leaving Tyrion speechless. In the Reach, the soldier arrives back at the military camp and informs everyone about what happened. The commanders immediately send a raven to King's Landing. In King's Landing, Varys meets Brienne, who is recovering from her injury. Varys asks Brienne about the actions of Daenerys during the street fights and if she thinks that this was a just choice. Brienne makes it clear she has sworn to serve her queen, and that she will do what she must. Varys tries to persuade Brienne into having doubts about Daenerys, but Brienne refuses to follow through with it. Not much later, A raven is received, in which the news of the Reach is mentioned. Tyrion brings the news to Daenerys, who, upon hearing this, gets mad with anger. She jumps onto Drogon and flies away. In the Reach, Jaime, Bronn, Podrick and the other captured soldiers are brought to the rebel camp. The camp exists out of a roughly 3,000 men. Jaime is brought to the main tent while the rest are put in large cages. In the main tent, Jaime meets the leader of the rebels, Cadmus. They have a conversation in which is talked about their conflict. Jaime came to propose a truce, but now that I have taken them prisoner, they can forget that option. Cadmus responds by saying that he does not wish to make peace with someone who has spent her lifetime oppressing her people and destroying their culture. An argument breaks out between the two. Cadmus eventually reveals himself to be a former citizen of the city of Meereen. He was there when the Masters launched their attack on the city and when Daenerys came with her army and 3 dragons, causing even more death and destruction. Apparently, he lost his entire family during the attack of the Masters, who destroyed the city with catapults. But it was Daenerys and her rule that caused the downfall of the city, and since then he has been gathering men and women to take their revenge against her. Jaime makes it clear that they have no chance of winning. Daenerys has the largest army, the largest fleet, a dragon, and is one of the leaders of the most powerful house ruling Westeros right now. Cadmus answers by saying that a powerful house is only as powerful as the trust and unity between the members of it. An empire that crumbles from within, that's dead. He sends Jaime to the cages where the others are and says that they will be executed tomorrow. Alright, that was episode 5, A Storm of Swords. Again, a lot of things have happened in this episode. Again, things are really moving forward. Daenerys just keeps on getting more desperate. She actually dismissed Varys from his position as Hand of the Queen. A nice thing though, Daario has arrived, which I thought was a fun thing to do, but he has revealed that Meereen has been taken over again by the Masters. Varys admitted that he knew about this, but I guess he just didn't want to tell Daenerys because she already was having enough things on her head, on her mind. But of course now she completely lost it. She dismissed Varys from being Hand of the Queen. Jon was ordered, well, not really ordered, but Jon has departed back to Winterfell after receiving some news about little Sam being ill and such. So he felt like he had to leave. That being said, most of the things happening in this episode, however, all took place in the Reach. In the Reach, Jaime, Bronn, Podrick and other soldiers, they were en route to the rebel camp when they actually got lured into a trap and were attacked. They were brought to the rebel camp. Of course, Jaime finally met the rebel leader called Cadmus. It's actually revealed through a flashback that Cadmus was previously a citizen of Meereen, but he lost his entire family during the attack on Meereen by the Masters. But it is actually revealed that it was actually part due to Daenerys and her dragons and Dothraki and everything, and he just basically purely blames Daenerys and her reign for the downfall and the destruction of Meereen in that time. So, so at least you know where he's coming from. Jaime, Bronn, Podrick, and all the others, they're held captive. It's announced that they will be executed the next morning. Daenerys knows about this, and the last thing we saw of her was that she jumped onto Drogon and she just left. We don't know where, she just left. And that was pretty much it, guys. Alright, episode 5 of Storm of Swords. I hope you like it. Stay tuned for our next episode. Alright, see you guys later.